Hey, what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and today we're going to be doing a video talking all about blue EDH commanders. I'm just talking about 5 commanders in this video, but in the past I've done videos on just called like fun EDH commanders, where I just kind of talk about random things, but I decided what I kind of wanted to do here is to kind of like focus on a color and focus on like different options. If you're like, hey, I'm like, in this video I'm talking about blue, but I'll do like green and like red and stuff. And so it's like, what would I do if I was going to build this deck? Like, what would it look like? And that was kind of like my mentality. And so like I have my notes on like what this is, like how I would build this deck, because obviously like different commanders like different cards. Like there's going to be some cards, of course, that you might like, your staples you run in every deck, but these are like things that I would do. And there's some interesting stuff on here, and I'm pretty excited to talk about it, so let's hop into it. The first card I want to talk about is Talrand Sky Summoner, and who is OG who remembers when I had a Talrand Sky Summoner deck that I genuinely do not think I did a deck tech on, because one, this was when I didn't really do, I would say, as many deck techs on my channel, and two, I took the deck apart, actually. It was really mean 1v1 because it literally just, all it ran was like counter spells and people got really mad, so I like took it apart. And now honestly looking at it, I think if I had this deck like later on, I don't think this was a deck that I would build, but this is just for, this is not like, this again, if I was doing it, but like I'm not. So basically how I would build this type of deck is you want to get Talrand out as early as absolute possible, because the earlier you get him out, the earlier he like makes tokens for you, which is probably one of your win conditions. If you don't want to go this win condition, or this is kind of like an alternate win condition, you can do some infinite combos and things like that in this deck, obviously, because you want to get him out so you can make drakes that you can like pump and, you know, kill your opponents basically with like flying damage. So if you're doing that route, you can run like pump spells, things like that would be like really good to like give your team, like, you know, your things that have flying, you can make your drakes 3/3s and 4/4s and things like that. There's some ways that you can like get around that. But the primary thing that I would just have in this deck, honestly, is just instants and sorceries. Things that you, whenever you cast them, you're countering a spell, you're drawing cards, so that you're triggering Talrand to get these drakes. And I would just say, yeah, like counter spells and like removals, but I do think having, honestly, an alternate win condition in a deck like this is super important, just because you can't necessarily rely, because if you don't have you can't rely on your drakes like honestly winning all the time. So if you're someone who's like, I only want to win via damage, I don't think this is a deck for you. But if you're someone who's open to running infinite combos and other win conditions other than just your drakes, but I think your drakes can definitely be a primary win condition, I just think you might need an alternate one, just because it can be really a fragile strategy. Honestly, someone can just board wipe you and you don't have a counter spell up, and like your board is gone, and that's very sad. So and then, yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say about that. The next card I'm really excited to talk to you guys about, and that is Jalira, Master Polymorphist. See, I like these videos because I get to talk about decks and strategies that I might not have done, but other people have done, or like I think is really cool, but I wouldn't do. My friend Eddie actually had this deck, and a really long time ago, I don't know if he has the deck anymore, but basically the whole theme behind her, and one way to build her, is you basically just play a bunch of really dumb big Eldrazi's. You sack something, it's another creature, it's not even non-token, so you can literally make a 1/1 and sack it and just get this 12/12 for 3 mana. Like, that's so good. So your early stages of the game are probably like mana acceleration, and then just like drawing cards, honestly, is probably what your early stages are. Blue, so you're running counter spells and like removal like type of effects. And then, like I said, you play small things, you sack things, or you have like when it dies triggers, or any like type of thing. You're running really, really small creatures that don't cost a lot of mana, so that you can sack it to reveal a non-legendary card. Now, what I will say is you want to make sure your creatures are like all very strong and are all very, well, one, they're not legendaries, of course, but two, when you make whatever it is that you're sacrificing, it needs to be really, like, not good. Like, it needs to be, like, a token or something like that. Like, what I'm kind of saying is, like, you don't want to play, like, an actual, like, legitimate creatures in this deck, because you don't want to, like, flip her and then get, like, a Solemn Simulacrum, for example. Like, that's just not how I would build this type of deck. I would want to do something where I would have, like, tokens as my thing to sack lands that make tokens, or instants and sorceries, or things like that. And then you just play these really dumb, big, stupid... They don't even have to be Eldrazi. You can just play any type of big blue creatures that you just kill your opponents with. Again, you're playing blue, so you could potentially use mythic combos, but I think your main win condition would just be playing these really stupid big creatures. You're sacking a 1/1 for 3 mana to get a really, really big creature. So, yeah, that is pretty much how I would do Jalira. She's super fun. That is just not my kind of deck. I think that deck would be very linear and pretty boring, if we're being completely honest. Like, that's just my opinion. If you want to build it, go for it. It's just not my kind of deck. This might be my kind of deck, and this is for my sea monster type of people who want to build something, again, mono, colored, and that it would be Lorthos the Tidemaker. Lorthos is like a really interesting card because it's, a lot of times sea monsters are more green. There's a lot of like green sea monsters and things like that, and there's definitely things, but this is for my person who's like, I want to do sea monsters, but I might be on a budget or something like that, or I only want to do mono colored. I already have a color, I already have a green blue deck. I want to do something a little bit different, but I want to build sea monsters. Or honestly, you don't even have to build sea monsters if you don't want to with this deck. But my kind of thought behind this, I mean, if you don't do sea monsters, you can just literally do like whatever. Like, you can play whatever with this card, right? It's blue, you're playing counter spells and draw spells, like best things ever. So pretty much whenever he attacks, you can pay 8 mana. And if you do, you can tap up to 8 target permanents. So honestly, I just think this card, like, ways to buff him potentially. He is a really, really big creature, so honestly, like, you want a lot of mana, so you definitely want a lot of mana acceleration so you can get the 8 mana, and you can also do other things with your mana. I would do things of also making him potentially unblockable. He doesn't have any type of evasion, really. I lied. He does have evasion because he can tap stuff down, so you can, like, realistically tap down a board. He's very, I don't want to say, like, oppressive, but, like, he does very, like, death and taxes-y type of thing. I think he works really well in, like, smaller EDH pods because then you can kind of, like, really focus in on one person. Another strategy might be, like, finding a way to give him double strike or, like, something like that to kind of, like, make it so, like, he can be one of your win conditions because he is an 8/8. So, like, 3 attacks from him, like, someone's dead. And then if you have, like, him double strike or something like that, like, that's 2 hits and someone's dead. So, I think Lorthos is a really interesting commander. Even if you don't, like, necessarily build a deck around him, I think he'd be a really good inclusion in, like, a sea monster type of deck or just, like, honestly, a blue type of whatever deck. He's a lot of mana, though, so I would, like, be very cautious in making sure you're mana ramping pretty well so you can get this ability off. Okay, I'm really excited to talk about my girl who's probably just one of my favorite cards, become one of my favorite cards, and that is Emry. Oh my god, Emery is so good. I just love her so much. So basically, she costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. So basically, she's like 1 mana for a 1/2. When she enters the battlefield, you put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard, and then you can tap her to choose target artifact in your graveyard and cast it this turn. If you've been keeping up with me for a while, you know that I have tried many artifact type of decks. I haven't been really impressed by a lot of things. I just recently built an artifact deck. It's not Emery as the commander, but I just put her in the deck and I just love her. Like, if you're someone who, like, maybe has built artifact decks in the past and you haven't really been a fan of her, she might be a really good option for you. I kind of like that it's the monochromatic effect where you're not worrying about other colors. I feel like it's really easy in, like, multiple colored commanders to get really overwhelmed because the pool of cards is just so huge. But with this, you're a little bit more limited, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. You're just running different cards. There's some really, really awesome stuff that you can do in mono blue. I love the fact that you can mill for, but, like, you don't have to build her. Like, you could if you wanted to. You could build, like, milling or, like, self-milling or, like, anything like that or, like, whatever. But I guess the main thing with her would be just, like, recurring artifacts is, like, the main thing that you're going to want to do. And untapping her because you want to really, like, focus in on that part that says that you can choose an artifact in graveyard to cast this turn. And you're playing colorless, so you're gonna be able to cast, like, all of your stuff, basically. She's super cheap cost-wise, mana cost-wise, to get out. You can get her out, honestly, on turn 1, which is so good. Mill 4, get some stuff, just the ways you can just go infinite with her. You honestly can build her with so many infinite combos, but honestly, you don't have to do that if that's, like, not your jam. Like, you can totally build Emery with just, like, fun artifacts and just have a great time and just keep recurring your artifacts. Just, like, keep having things, you know, play some really good artifact creatures, like, have a great time, and just, like, other generic artifacts. So I'm really high on Emery right now. I really like her a lot. And the last card is so interesting, and I wrote this list actually a really long time ago, so, like, I don't remember, like, putting this card on this list, but I'm really glad I am, and that is Linessa. First off, Linessa, coolest name ever. I want to be named that. I'm just gonna rename. No longer gonna be Tracy, renaming myself Linessa. She's really, really interesting. The second ability is literally irrelevant for EDH, so I'm not even gonna talk about it, because you can't do it. But, for X, double blue, and tap, you can return target creature with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. Now, you could do a lot of things with her, honestly. You can bounce your stuff that might have ETB effects. You could do this as a protection if someone tries to kill your thing. You could bounce your stuff with ETB effects. You can bounce other people's stuff. You can untap her. So, like, have her, untap her, and then bounce another thing if you wanted to. Like, there's so many cool things that you can do with her. And I really like that. I like that you have kind of, like, multiple strategies. And I also wrote here, like, she, like, annoys your opponents. Like, she can be a really annoying commander because you're just, like, someone's, like, attack you, and you're, like, pay for, unsummon your thing. And then someone else, like, goes to untap you, goes to attack you on, like, their turn. And you're, like, oh, untap my Linessa, tap some mana, yeah, bounce your thing, like, so good. Again, or that can be your kind of, like, not like backup plan, but, like, your primary thing could be, like, bouncing your own creatures. Again, if someone tries to target them, or if you have a lot of, like, ETB effects, you can totally bounce them back to your hand. I really like her, honestly. I think she's really interesting and, like, really unique. And just, like, I haven't seen a lot of cards with her and cards like her before, and I think she can be a really interesting mono blue commander that you could just do a variety of things with and just really just annoy your opponents. I think is, like, the main thing with Linessa that I think is really cool. So, guys, that is it for talking about blue EDH commanders. I will list in the down bar the other videos that I've done where I've talked about EDH commanders. I've done another one where I've specialized in a specific color. I think it was green. Yeah, it was green. And then I'll definitely be doing the other colors because I think these videos are really fun to kind of, like, spend some more quality time talking about them. And then I might in the future, this is like a down the line project, do like dual colored commanders of like the different color combos and like talk about like how I would build those. Cause I think that would be really interesting because that adds like a totally different element with like another color. So yeah, that is it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like it if you did, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.